the game level.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Westeros Total War, King of Rivers and Hills. This is a complete overhaul submod of the original Westeros Total War Alpha, by far the most polished and complete submod that you will find for the Alpha. Westeros Total War, for those of you that don't know, is based on the Song of Ice and Fire trilogy by G.R.R. Martin, and loosely based on HBO's Game of Thrones. Now the beauty of this submod, apart from it being the most polished that you'll find out there to date, is the fact that it's set thousands of years before the events of the books and the HBO show, leaving you with next to no chance whatsoever of encountering any major spoilers. So, let's get into this. The best way I came up with to showing you guys this mod would be to slowly start from the north and go down to the south, showing off every faction that there is in the game and giving you a little bit of backstory into their houses. House Stark has dominated the north since Brandon the Builder founded Winterfell in the Age of Heroes. Their role as kings of winter has not been uncontested, however, with the Boltons of the Dreadfort being their main antagonists for the past millennia. Finally bringing the Boltons to heel 200 years ago, the snow crown melted in Winterfell's great furnace. The North was brought to peace, until now. With rebellion rife, the Boltons have seized the opportunity to reforge the snow crown, rallying many of the great houses of the North to their cause. Brion Stark, the current King of Winter, was born a bastard, the son of a Stark princess and a wildling. Despite being an apt general and an efficient administrator, he is prone to animalistic outbursts of fury. Blamed by many of his lords for his heritage, the Northerners' resentment of those beyond the wall has contributed to the growing unrest in his lands. Returning from the Gift after defeating his father, the King beyond the wall, Brion brings his battered and bloodied troops at a halt at Last Hearth, indulging the hospitality of his friend Lord Umber. He receives a messenger from Winterfell. Not only does it tell of Bolton's treachery, but also that his own bastard son, Brandon, has taken the Winterfell garrison south. With the seat of House Stark emptied, it faces threats from all sides. From the coast come Ironborn raids, intent on looting and raping and pillaging all that stands in their way. To the south lies the Greystarks, now more kin to the Boltons than their liege lord. Rallying a force at their seat Wolf's Den, to the east Domric Bolton marches from the Dreadfort thirsty for Stark blood. The north now stands at a crossroads, with each road seeming to lead to disaster. To survive, Brion must not only annihilate Bolton forces so utterly as to render them incapable of future assault, but also secure his territories so completely that no petty king will ever be able to question his line's rule again. House Bolton and House Stark have been bitter rivals for the kingship of the North since any living soul can remember. The walls of the Dreadfort were lined with the flayed hides of those that the Bolton had defeated in battle, including many a Stark king. 200 years ago, the last Bolton king, beaten and bloodied, knelt in front of a Stark and swore fealty. Now, with only a bastard, also a wildling bastard, sitting on the throne, the Boltons lay claim to the throne themselves, with the Greystarks supporting them. The forces of the Dreadfort march once again for the skins of their enemies. Domric Bolton has declared himself King of the North for his mother's, a Greystark's bloodline, drawing upon her family's support for his title. Known for his dashing good looks and enthralling charisma, many of those that the Starks would consider loyal are finding themselves drawn to the idea of Domric as king. With Brion returning from the wall after slaying his own father, Domric rallies his banners at the Dreadfort in order to intercept this king. However, whispers in his court suggest that Domric's unbearable rage and hate he bears against the Stark bloodline is clouding his judgment. Only time will tell if this will lead him to disaster or victory. In the south, his uncle Theon Greystark prepares to march on the undefended Winterfell. With his mother's suicide and his son's rush to retake Barrowtown from the Roswells, Brion has left nobody to rally with what little troops remain in his capital, leaving it vulnerable. However, it is not well in the west, with sightings of the Ironborn longships all along the coast. Even if Domric can seize the north, whether he can hold it against the maddening fury of House Hoar's raiders is yet to be seen. The stage is set for the Boltons to become the kings of the north. Whether they can capitalize on this chance, or are defeated once again by the Wolf Lords, only time will tell. One thing is sure, winter is coming. Remaining loyal to the customs of the First Men and rejecting those of the invading Andals, House Mud now stands alone, tracing their line back through the Age of Heroes. The Muds carved their kingdom through conquest, and as such, have always been ruled by warriors. Such warfare does not always breed loyalty, and many of the lords sworn to the house do not do so out of their own free will. Surrounded on all sides by Andal forces, and with the Storm Kings launching an invasion with the intent to purge Westeros of the First Men for good, House Mud once again marches to war. Their natural allies, the Starks, have troubles of their own in the north, leaving the Muds friendless. Their leader, known throughout the land as the Hammer of Justice, currently rules as King of Rivers and Hills. He is seen by the people as an harbinger of the old gods and defender of the First Men, having yet to lose a battle since the first command at 17. Fresh from battling the Lannisters in the east, he has returned to Old Stones in order to rally a new army to march against the Storm Kings. With pressure from the Andal kingdoms on all sides, the King of Rivers and Hills simply does not have the manpower to fight a four-front war. In the south, Darry has successfully pushed back the advances of the Storm King forces, although such victory has ignited the king's jealousy, sending his son to relieve the Darry of his command and hold it until his father can lead the forces himself. He has unintentionally damaged his defences. His son and heir, whilst known to be a decent commander, is widely known to be entirely useless when it comes to the successful administration of castles and cities. To the east, spies report that Talon of House Arryn has sent ravens calling his banners. Whether he intends to bring his forces from the mountain passes into the Riverlands, only time will tell. In the Westerlands, Lancel Lannister's son rallies an army at Castle Rock. His intentions are about as unknown as Prince Talon's. The Riverlands' end seems to have come. Beset from all sides and from within, the Hammer of Justice must hold his kingdom together with more than just military prowess. He could win every battle and still lose the war. House Lannister traces its line back to Lann the Clever, who, during the Age of Heroes, tricked House Casterly into gifting him with Casterly Rock. Lann's descendants eventually interbreeded with the first wave of Andal settlers, causing the house to adopt their customs. The abandonment of the old gods led them into conflict with House Mud, who saw this as blasphemy. The threat of the conflict forced the Lannisters to establish castles guarding the mountain passes. More recently, the rejection of an arranged marriage with the Gardeners has driven Lancel to call his banners. House Arryn is one of the oldest Andal houses in Westeros, the Vale being the first place that the Andal ships landed. When Sir Altus Arryn, one of the first knights to set foot on shore, slew the first man-mountain king, he took his lands and founded his own royal house. Since then, the Arryns have ruled as the kings of the mountain and the Vale for nearly 5,000 years. Whilst they have been able to hold the passes without fail, the Sistertons have swapped hands many times, becoming literally the battleground between the Vale and the North for years. However, with House Mud controlling the lands beyond the mountain passes, the opportunity to expand has been limited. Now, with war waging on all sides and the eyes of House Mud directed elsewhere, the men of the Vale have an unprecedented opportunity to seize a foothold in the Riverlands. After the annihilation of House Grey-Iron by the Andal settlers, House Hoar was given the Seastone chair of the Iron Islands by the Kingsmote. However, rather than returning to the old way, the Hoars declared the title to be hereditary, causing tension between the islands. This tension particularly becomes apparent in the relation to the Greyjoys of Pike, who were widely considered to be the next in line to the Driftwood crown. However, the Hoars have successfully led the men of the Iron Islands to reclaim much of the territory they considered theirs. Ever since, the Ironborn have been raiding along the western coast of Westeros, seizing whatever they wish at the cost of the iron price. House Yronwood has held themselves as the kings in the mountains for as long as any living soul in Westeros can remember. Throughout their rule, they have had to face with the dangers of the west, with House Gardener attempting to expand their borders, and the growing threat from the east as House Martell seeks to claim dominion over all of Dorne. The eastern border has spent the last 100 years in chaos. House Martell began their rule as one of the many petty kingdoms making up the Dornish lands. Over time, through both marriage and military force, the Martells gradually carved a strong kingdom covering over most of the desert. This expansion brought them into conflict with the Yronwoods of Yronwood. The western border has spent the last 100 years in chaos, with minor forces from both sides attempting to outmaneuver each other. Ruling the Reach since the Age of Heroes, House Gardener has maintained itself as one of the most powerful houses in Westeros, having been one of the first houses to adopt the Andal custom through marriage to Andal princesses and the building of the Sari Sept, essentially making Old Town the Faith's power centre. It has enjoyed the support of the High Septon. This favour has been recently manifested itself in the ascension of Giles' gardener's brother, Axel, into the position of the Grand Master of the Warrior's Sons. However, the wealth of the house in land, population and coin has inspired jealousy from its neighbours, forcing every king of the Reach in history to fight for his crown, with hostilities from the Storm King, House Hoar and House Yornwood stretching back several generations. The onset of new foes, in the form of House Lannister, may finally be the Reach's undoing. The Kingdom of the Storm Kings traces its history back to the Age of Heroes, where Durin I, also known as God's Grief, founded the Dondarian line. Unlike many of the other kingdoms of Westeros, the Storm Kings accepted the Andal culture and faith easily and quickly. This is widely considered to be the primary cause for the house's bitter, century-spanning conflict with House Mud of the Riverlands. The current Storm King is both an efficient general and a charismatic politician. He has led his house to glory on the field and off it. Rather than a territorial war, the Storm King sees the northern campaign on the Riverlands more of a holy war, with the sole goal of wiping the first men off the face of Westeros. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we will end this here. I hope you enjoyed listening to the stories behind these factions. This is by far the most polished, to date at least, submod that you can get for Westeros Total War, and I would recommend using it. The beauty of this one is, of course, being the most polished and most up-to-date, with its own custom characters, portraits, and even skins in-game. Currently, to date, this is one of the funnest submods I've ever played with the Westeros Alpha, and I do highly recommend it, keeping in mind that this is a submod based off the Alpha version of the Westeros Total War. And once version 1.0 is out and the team gets around to doing it, it will of course be updated to the full version. Now, while it may not be on par to a mod like Third Age, which has been completely overhauled and finished, obviously, this is of course based on an alpha. So keeping that in mind, I think it's a rather decent piece of work and by far the most polished submod that is currently out to date when I'm recording this. Another thing to keep in mind is the fact that the alpha that you can download now, and the alpha that every submod is based off for the Westeros Alpha, is in fact made by a completely different team to the one that's making it now. On their Total War Center thread, they do have a weekly update system so you can see what they're up to, and so far it is looking very well done and very nice, and personally I cannot wait to get my hands on it. So guys, we'll leave this here. Please leave a thumbs, like up, subscribe, you know the deal. And that's all for now. So I really hope you like this mod and I like the review. And I hope that the lore and the story behind the factions was enough to get you guys to go out and give this mod a try. So that's all for now. We'll leave you with this. Soul out.
Enter the game level.